why am I living my entire life doing something that is just like so not what I wanted at all? And this is just case in point. Like, we don't know when our last moment is going to be. And we have to take those steps to find ways to like make ourselves enjoy it more.
Welcome to Behind Their Success. This podcast is for people who are feeling stuck on their entrepreneur journey or in their careers. It's for people who want to scale and grow their businesses, learn about the power of mindset, or they just know there's more out there and they want to start making changes. I'm Peyton Squires, the host of the podcast. I was never cut out to be an employee, and when I was an employee, I was bored out of my mind. So I made a plan. I studied and passed the CPA exam in 8 months while working, all with the end goal in mind of quitting my job and starting my own business. I did that in 2014, and it's been an amazing wild ride since. So now let's hear from other entrepreneurs and what mindsets, and probably more important, what actions they have taken that have created and led to their success.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Behind Their Success podcast. I'm Peyton Squires, the host, and today we have on Emily Aborn. Emily is a content copywriter, a podcast host, and a speaker. In all of these avenues, she helps small business owners bring their message to life by sharing what sets them apart. She provides information and resources through her podcast, speaking, and strategy sessions. Emily, welcome on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Peyton.
Yeah, absolutely, Emily. So give us a little bit about your background or what you're currently doing.
Okay, so I am a copywriter, which means a lot of people think it's like that little C with the circle, that stamps on publications. It's not that. It's actually like writing copy for things like websites and blogs and different marketing materials that need those quippy one-liners. So that's what I focus on. That's my bread and butter, so to speak. But as you mentioned in my bio, I'm also a podcast host. And to be truthful, I've had many things prior to this. Like, now I am the most focused I have ever been in my entrepreneurial journey. I've owned a brick and mortar as well as an online kind of membership business. And that also had like events and things like that. And now I'm really focused on copywriting and helping to guide people within the context of content creation, marketing, and visibility.
Very cool. Very cool. So you're entrepreneurial spirit, right? So give us a background, like where are you from? Where'd you come from? Like that journey a little bit.
Super fun. Okay. Honestly, I think I am legit one of those people who's wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in Maine, raised in New Hampshire. We moved there like when I was about 9 or 10. And from the moment my first lemonade stand, I think, was really where it all started. And it just kept on. You know what? Actually, it was before that, because I had a little town newspaper I would handwrite and deliver and create and sell for like 50 cents a newspaper, So I've just always really, really had that in me and have started little like businesses my entire life. That said, I don't know why, but I went to school for health education. Like, I just was really interested. I was the kid that was like always reading the back of the cereal box and like, oh, here's all the ingredients and things like that. I just got really interested in like biology and health in school. So I decided I'm going to be a health teacher. So I went to school for health education, community health education. And I don't know, there were a lot of signs in that journey that like maybe you should pursue something bigger like communications or sociology or psychology or something else.
Yeah.
And I just kept going along that health track. I just followed that vein for, I think, a decade. And then finally, in 2014, I couldn't take it anymore. I was working for somebody and she was like the kind of person that you could not be in her presence without doing what you wanted to do with your life. Like, she was so positive and inspiring and happy with her dream that you're like, I can't work for you anymore, feeling miserable and like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So my husband and I we opened a retail shop, and I felt still that I had to use this like health degree that I had acquired and was doing nothing with. So the shop was focused on like healthy sleep products and non-toxic things like that. So that was like my first foray into entrepreneurship. And it was really, and it's just such a differentiation of how I started this business. Like we crossed every I, nope, crossed every T, dotted every I. Like we had our ducks in a row. We had to like present to a bank and get a loan and get rent and redo the entire building. So we had a business plan, a huge marketing plan. Like every single box was checked when I opened that business.
Yeah.
Conversely, when we decided to make the shift away from that, I had to figure out like, what am I doing with my life? I thought I was going to be doing this until I was 60.
Yeah.
I had put all my eggs in that basket. So I had to figure things out. And I messily, like, I got my real estate license, and then I was like, "Oh, no, I don't care for this." Then I just took whatever came my way. Like, I took on a lot of things for my entrepreneurial friends that they needed help with, and it was, like, a really messy process to finding what was really had been inside me all along, and I probably should have been pursuing all along. So, that's sort of the story in a nutshell, not so nutshell.
Yeah, that's a good story. And I don't know, I wouldn't say typical story, but like a story of you knew you were entrepreneurship, but you take that kind of winding route, right? Obviously, where a lot of people get out of college, you have no idea what you're doing or what you even want. Like most people, they don't have enough self-awareness to even have a clue what they want. So it's good that you found that winding trail, I guess, just kept pursuing it.
Yeah. If only I had just stuck with writing the newspaper, we would have been all good.
Much shorter tracks. Yeah,
Exactly.
when I look back on different things I've done and things I've been involved in, or like you look back and they weren't bad, but like maybe less focused. And there's all lessons to be learned from that stuff. And they help you and move you along the way. But yeah, it's hard for anybody that's had some level of success to look back and see, man, I could have done that a whole lot better. I knew what I knew now.
Yeah, agreed. I don't have any regrets, like you said, but then sometimes, because you know what the thing with regrets is, like, if you change one little thing, you actually end up changing everything. Life is so dependent on a series of
Yeah.
fine events, right? So you do change one little tiny thing, and who knows, you change the entire trajectory of it could be tons of people that you change the trajectory of. So it doesn't serve us to have regrets. I think it's just it's information and lessons that we can share with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. You're talking about the butterfly effect there a little bit. You never know where your actions actually end up leading to. What do you think is your best skill? What's led to your success to this point?
You know what? I just was having dinner with some friends last night, and I was like watching the dynamics of the group. It was a larger group where there were 8 of us. And I was thinking about just like how much I really loved all of the people at the table. And I could sense that there were some that maybe like they were like holding a distance from each other. Maybe they weren't as crazy about people. I am a very welcoming person. And I think that has really helped me throughout all of my business kind of ventures. It's translated into being able to read people and understand people well, also communicate what they're trying to say more clearly, and then like having really good customer service. So welcoming it's a soft skill, but I think it is one of my strongest skills that has served me like throughout my life. Like I just really don't judge people. I just kind of like everybody's welcome. And it has served me really, really well.
Yeah. So knowing you all of 15 minutes, I can see that and confirm that. Right. I can tell I use a personality test a lot called Culture Index, and I'm sitting here trying to profile you while you're talking. And
now I have to look that up. I'm obsessed with personality tests.
And what I'm getting from you is there's a B trait, which is like social ability and be able to read people and all those types of things. I bet that would be your leading trait.
If I was a proper millennial, I'd blame my childhood for that.
No, and the fact is, it is, right? Like you actually go back and look, like it is really all based off experiences we did have as a child, but it really does. Those experiences lock into you when you're a little younger, and you can alter them to some degree, but not really.
Yeah. I'm very into personality tests, and especially recently in the past 5 years, the Enneagram.
Yeah.
I just think the Enneagram is great because it offers you like so much growth and insight and self-awareness. But my parents had this book called The Personality Tree when I was a little kid. In that book, there's only 4 types: phlegmatic, melancholy.
Melancholy?
Yes, melancholy. I have a brother who's that. Choleric, and then there's one more. I can't remember them all. But I would read that book and be like, "I'm not" oh, sanguine. I'd be like, "I'm not any of these perfectly. Like, what's wrong with me?" Because there's only 4, and they tell you basically, "You fit into one of these 4 boxes."
Not very
So,
refined.
no.
Yeah, I think there's like 19 or 20 like me profiles.
Yeah, we need some space.
Yeah. So it gets a little more fine tuned, for sure. Are you looking for a new tax experience? Looking for an advisor that actually brings you high level ideas and proactively plans so you aren't overpaying your taxes? Or how about one that even just responds and communicates in a timely fashion? If any of that resonates with you, you probably just have a tax preparer and not a tax planner. And it is through the tax planning process where all the value is found. I'm Peyton Squires. I'm a CPA and owner of WR Tax Planner. We work alongside entrepreneurs and high-income earners, helping them pay the least amount of income taxes, both legally and ethically. We have saved our clients hundreds of thousands of dollars through specific strategies, and we guarantee we can find multiple tax saving strategies that your current tax preparer hasn't told you about. If that interests you, head on over to the contact page at PeytonSquires.com. There you can fill out a contact form and get a call booked to see what it would look like to have WR Tax Planners on your team. So you're outgoing, your personality, be able to work and communicate with people seems to be your superpower. But what's the best decision you've made along your journey?
Oh, I have such a good answer for this. So it goes hand in hand with what I just said. So I'm not the kind of person who will go out of my way to introduce myself to somebody, or let's say I'm at like a social event, I'd be like, "Oh, somebody please approach me because I don't want to approach you." So I am social, but I don't go out of my way to connect with people. I'll say that. Like I would just lock myself in my office and sit behind my computer and write all day. Okay. So I was actually doing that in my retail shop. Like I was just in my shop all day long. I worked 5 days a week. And even on the days I didn't work, I was like going to the store and cleaning the store or doing something for the store or going on deliveries for the store. I was always working. And so I just locked myself in these 4 walls and never really talked to anybody except people in my like little plaza that I worked in and my friends, obviously. But so I sat down with a business mentor. We were looking to sell our business. And so I wanted to see my options. And also, I had to decide what I was doing next with my life. So I sat down with a business mentor and she's like, Emily, you really need to rewind to 5 years ago when you first started this business and put yourself in those baby brand new business owner pants. And she's like, and go meet people. And I was just like, oh, okay. So that is the best decision I ever made, was to take a couple steps out that door and start meeting people, because what I found was a lot of other entrepreneurs, which I'm sure you experience this as well. People are in the same boat. They're experiencing the same things we do. I just had a friend, one of my friends last night. She's like, I feel so unsuccessful and insignificant compared to what other people are doing. And I'm like, are you kidding? I look at you and I think you are so successful and you have this 20-hour work week somehow that like I wish I had. So that's the kind of conversations I started having with people and really realizing like, hey, we're all in this together. Let's talk about this. So that was the best decision I ever made. It opened up my world. My network really expanded from there. And like it had nothing to do with my store, honestly. No more people bought bedding products. It wasn't about that. It was just for me about getting out of my own way and going to make the connections for myself. And I thought of clever ways to do it. Like I wrote a blog for local business owners. So I would say, I'm going to write a blog on you. So I'm going to come into your location, take photos, interview you. And then it was
It's
like,
memorable.
right. So then I was doing them a service. And it's not just like, okay, let's have a coffee chat or have a conversation. Like it was really benefiting them. So I still do that now with like my current chamber. It's just in a less, it's like in a less, I need to go to their business kind of way.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you get to a certain point where it's like, yeah, you need to do some things differently, or you don't need to necessarily do the things you did before. But I wondered, going back to what you said, you spent those times kind of locked in your retail office by yourself. I wonder how happy
Oh, I was not happy.
because seeing you and your outgoingness and your ability to talk to people, like you get energy from that.
Yeah, that store was I mean, that was part of why we made the decision to close it. Like, I was so unhappy. In fact, I had a best friend who she called me one day from work, and she was a nurse, and she was like she locked herself in, like, a cleaning closet, and she called me, and she's just crying her eyes out. She's like, "I have to get out of here." Like,
Mhm.
specific ward she was working in was, like, terrible.
Sure.
And funny enough, when she called me, I was in my office at my shop being like, "Yeah, I gotta get out of here too." So, the really tragic thing is my friend was we were both young and she passed away. And so I just made that was like my wake up call. It's really sad that is what it took, but I was like, "Oh, why am I living my entire life doing something that is just like so not what I wanted at all?" And this is just case in point. Like, we don't know when our last moment is going to be. And we have to take those steps to find ways to like make ourselves enjoy it more.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. You said the best decision you made was put yourself out there. And once you put yourself out there, I think you probably really saw it's like, wow, I'm actually really good at this. And you got more confidence in it and it becomes easier and you get better and all those things. On the flip side, what's a big mistake you've made?
That's a great question. It's not that I have not made mistakes. I have made many failures. Okay, you know what? I have a perfect one. It applies to every single thing that I do. So, a lot of times I don't know how I feel about something until I try it or do it for myself. And that has gotten me into like a lot of situations where I'm like, "Oh my god, what am I like I'm way down this path and it now I'm realizing like this is awful and not at all what I wanted."
Mm.
And some of that has also come from when you're uncomfortable or in pain as a business owner, you just want a fast solution. Like you just want like get me out of this.
Yep.
And sometimes I would like I'm like a polar. Like I'm like, "What do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this?" And I'll
Well,
ask
high social
every single
brilliance.
yes, I'll ask every single other person around me and see what they have to say and then make decisions based on that. And that has really not served me in business decisions. And then I go down these paths and I'm like, now I hate it because I'm just following somebody else's vision for what I should be doing. That would be my biggest mistake is just not getting like really clear on that internal, like my values, first of all, and my own vision. What do I really want for where I'm going? What does that look like? Is scaling something that's important to me? Like, what does this really look like? So,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's specificity and getting really clear on everything is almost a superpower in today's world with distraction and whatnot. And yeah, there's no way to get where you're going without getting super clear on it. What's one piece of advice you tell your younger self? Going back to the beginning, so going back to 2014.
I would say pick up some books and read them.
Mhm.
Like, I spent a lot of time in that store just sitting around, like, feeling miserable for myself, and I could have been reading and listening to podcasts, and, like, those are things I love to do and ways I love picking up knowledge or just having fun. Read a fiction book, girlfriend, you know? So, that's a piece of advice I would have given that person.
Do you read a lot of fiction books?
Yeah, I don't read a lot. I used to read, like, solely, like, self-help and, like,
That's me.
personal development. And then I was just like, "Oh my god, I'm not getting any better." So, I started just reading fiction, and you know what? I am actually getting better. So, yeah.
There's so many people like in the self-help world or people that have like start that journey a little bit and they just sit there and get just okay, the next book or the next piece of information and they're just sitting there acquiring information over and over again and not necessarily ever taking any actions, right? And also with the fiction books, I'm kind of that nerd or that guy that's yeah, I watch documentaries and something that I see is like useful in my life. But there's something to be said for fiction stuff and stories and to be able like stories or how we all communicate and be able to I can appreciate like film and art in ways that I probably never could before of like the story behind it and what it means.
And to your point, documentaries and podcasts that were, like, about things like that was where I was like, "Nope, nope, I don't listen to those."
Yeah.
So now shifting to reading fiction, I take in a lot more stuff, like, through a documentary or through a podcast that's, like, informational, and I love it. I think maybe it's easier for me to hear that kind of thing than be reading it, whereas fiction, I can't listen to fiction. I'm like, "I can't track this." So I have to be reading it.
Yeah, I guess I did get way down that self-development tracks. I don't even read books, as in I probably read 50 books a year, but it's all through Audible. I do have a couple
Oh, yeah.
books that sometimes like I'll occasionally have a book physically, but I would say 98% of the stuff I read is on Audible.
Interesting. So maybe that's why it works better for you, that it's like self-helpy.
Yeah, and it like knowing my profile, like I'm impatient. I need to move fast and get things done. And that's the Audible is just like I see it as an efficiency tool, right? It's like, hey, you can listen to this book in half the time. And obviously you can speed it up, but you obviously don't want to speed up the audio if you're not comprehending anything. People even take that to a degree where it's like it's some like badge of honor to read 1 million books in a year. But what are you actually doing with any of it?
Yeah, can I ask more about your
Yeah,
profile
yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
whole typing
Yeah,
system?
yeah, yeah. So I'm what's called a coordinator. My autonomy. So that is how self-reliant or self-confident you are. I'm actually statistically just barely above the line. I'm really middle of the road on autonomy. My B is super high, so that's social ability. My B is my leading trait, my ability to communicate and talk with people. My C is super low. That is like the pace somebody works at. So I work at a being low is like I work at a quick pace. D is how detailed person is. My detail is really high as well. So I have a really high social, really high detail. I'm an accountant by trade. And then my logic, there's a scale measuring the logic, which is like how emotive versus logical people think through problems. I'm a 9 on that. So like almost zero emotion at all logic.
Wow.
So that's me. My guess is you're something like coordinator, close. I don't think you have a super high A. You have a super high B. I'm not sure about your C or your detail level, but I know the B is the leading trait.
But I think I overthink, but I do think I make a lot of my decisions with emotions.
You very well
Okay,
may be a coordinator profile, having that
I'm
high
gonna look
B is
this
the
up.
leading trait. Yeah, that's cool.
So I wanna know about you said you're a CPA?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so do you do that locally or, like, everywhere?
Everywhere. Yeah. So yeah, I have my own firm and work all over the country with people. So I'm a CPA and also a CFP. And work with
Awesome.
clients all over the country with tax and wealth stuff.
That is not a job I would wish upon myself.
I don't know if you know anything about my background or whatever. It's money is something I've always been interested in. It's always been a tool and security to me. So that's what really got me into that world. And I grab a hold of something and I get really into the details. And I've been basically learning about that world since I was 18 years old.
So now I have to ask, like, what your money story was as a kid or growing
Okay.
up.
Yeah, single mom, dad in and out of the picture, and that created some financial insecurity. I didn't want to be poor. In a nutshell, that's the
Yeah.
story.
It's so interesting how, in a weird way, like, it is a frustrating way to grow up.
Yeah.
And I think that it really does help us as adults to be so much more careful and financially savvy when we come from that background because we're like, I never want to go through that again. Or I don't want to be in the position where I'm in the grocery line blaming my kids for how much they eat because of how much that receipt costs.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it took me a while to even figure out where it all came from. As you just become more and more self-aware and you look back and you're like, okay, so a lot of this makes sense. I really am just a result of my circumstances in a lot of ways. But in that we get into a debate of how much are we molded by our circumstances versus like free will choice. You get down that rabbit hole of it's a chicken or an egg thing kind of thing. It's what
This is like my favorite topic. Okay, here's the fun one for you. So I have a biological father who was never in the picture. I didn't even actually know he existed until I was like 10 years old.
wow.
And I started looking for him when I was 21. And I think I ended up finding him when I was 32 or 33. So when we finally met, it was fascinating. Like, I was able to see nature and nurture. You know what?
Mhm.
I can only describe it, and anybody who has gone through this will understand what I mean. But, like, I never could see even my face. Like, I would look at my face in the mirror and be like, "It doesn't feel connected to my head or my body." Like, it felt like something was wrong with me my entire life.
Wow.
When I met him, I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, I'm able to see myself. It was
Mhm.
crazy. But it was just such a good example of like, wow, this is nature, this is nurture. Like these are the things about myself that were just here to start. And like not just physical traits, but like even things we do with our tongue. Like it's
Sure.
so weird. Like I put my tongue on the back of my teeth when I laugh, and so does he. So it's just like really interesting things like that that I thought it was like I love this conversation and free will. And if you want to go there, we can go there too.
What's getting a really interesting topic to think about. And that to me, it's a little humbling thinking about, and you may think, hey, I've made good choices or I've done this and done that. And it's just not that simple, right? And to be able
Agreed.
to judge or to use anything like that to judge anybody else, it's humbling to realize maybe you just don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, your next book, I have a recommendation for you if you haven't already read it. Have you read Fluke by Brian Klaus?
I don't know that I have.
Okay, talk about butterfly effect. You are going to want to read that, literally down to the bomb that was dropped in Japan, just how micro of a situation that took place for that to happen. So you will love that book.
And the cool thing is, like, you look back at the Revolutionary War, and there's a story about George Washington and his troops, and they were stuck on the riverbank somewhere up there around Washington or whatever. But the British Army had them surrounded and had them ready to crush and ready to take them out. They were toast. And the wind that night, the British had to come up the river on a boat, and the wind that night was blowing the wrong way. And it gave them an extra day to get out of there. And David McCullough, who's like world renowned as like the number one like American history guy, says this country would not have existed if the wind was blowing the other way that night.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, I love this stuff.
It's cool. Anything else you want to talk about, Emily? I tell you, listeners like what they hear from you. What's the best way they can connect with you or get to know you a little bit?
Okay, if you have any interest in hearing more of the sound of my voice, I would want to invite you to come over to the Content with Character podcast because I have a lot of fun over there. It is about content and marketing and visibility, but I also talk about stuff that we do in those areas that come from other places in our life, like
Sure.
people pleasing or perfectionism or procrastination, like all of the stuff that gets, I sit down on strategy calls with people and we can map out the perfect strategy and plan for their content. And then there are like 20 other things that are actually holding them back from sharing those things.
Right.
So, exactly. So, we get into those topics and I have a lot of fun with it. I just let my curiosity guide me into where I'm going next.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, absolutely, guys. Obviously, Emily's very good at speaking on stuff. I would definitely check out her podcast. Emily, thank you for coming on. It's been a great combo.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you found it valuable, please rate, review, and share it. That is the best way to help us build this and reach more people, as we're trying to accomplish our goal of help creating more healthy, wealthy, and wise entrepreneurs. You can follow us on social media by searching for me, Peyton Squires, or going to PeytonSquires.com. On the website and social media, we're always sharing tips of personal growth, and there we can actually interact. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.